All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this is now episode 21 of the Coders Startup Podcast. Welcome. As always, I'm your host, Trevor Page. I'm joined by the right-hand man, Carter Johnson. How's it going, buddy?
It's good, man. It's good.
Can't complain. I always do this. I get off on tangents right as as soon as we get going with the recording. I was just out there and minus 21 degree with the wind chill Celsius. So I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. It's got to be ridiculous. But what is it like in Boulder, Colorado right now? Is it beautiful out? Can you go out and not see snow or what?
No, we're covered in snow.
I'm so
sick of snow.
Okay, cool.
We're covered in snow. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's so beautiful," because it's like that thick, heavy kind that lines all the trees and stuff. And
yeah, okay.
I guess so, but yeah, I'm ready for the beach weather.
Yeah,
I don't know why I live in a place where it just dumps snow, and I am like the complete opposite. I love the beach. I love sunshine. I love sweating through the day.
Yeah. Totally. So, you're clearly a brother from another mother because I hate the snow. I have no activities that I enjoy in the winter. I completely hole myself up in my home and I hate it every minute of it. So it's just like, you know what? We need to move down south or something. This is just ridiculous. Anyway, that's a sidebar. Already wasting time with that. I just wasn't sure if I should be jealous of Carter or not living in Boulder, but I guess not. So anyway, let's get on with the show today. I think we decided before the show that we were going to be talking about focus. And this is, I think, a topic that gets very relevant for someone who's been in their business and who has started their business and who's been in it for maybe about, 6 months or so. Because, I was hit with this all the time. I think of a new idea. I get excited about the new idea. I go gung-ho on the new idea for, probably about 6 months. And then there might not be any real traction that I see, and I start to sort of wane from the path. I start to get I start to develop the ability to become distracted by yet another shiny new, project. And this is something that Carter has fallen victim to, just like myself, over and over again.
Everyone does. Everyone does. I feel like there's a shift, and we can probably talk a little bit about this. There's this shift where you go from not knowing what to do or can I do something to, oh my gosh, the world has so many opportunities. Where do I focus on? Because it literally, it's almost like when you actually adjust your vision, I guess, to the world and you see all the opportunities, it's just so overwhelming. Like there is literally not enough time in the day to take them all on. And it's super fun when that shift happens because you go from, I don't have an idea, I want to do something on my own, to, oh my gosh, I have more ideas than I know what to do with. And
it's funny that you say that because that's exactly, I think the word that you're looking for there is the mindset shift that happens in you, where all of a sudden you go from, this is what Dane Maxwell says in the Foundation, you go from the scarcity mindset to the abundance mindset. And this is funny because I remember way back when, this was when I had my condo in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. For those of you who know where that is, good for you. I would be in the shower every morning, and even in my car rides to work, my commute to work, when I worked full time as a software engineer, I would just be racking my brain trying to think up different projects, different ideas, different mobile apps, because mobile apps were huge. Back in when was this? Like 2012, even before that, obviously. But I was trying my hardest to think up idea after idea and nothing would come to me. I was thinking, what about an app that would help with, trying to find the cheapest gas prices or the most efficient way to drive your car and I was doing all this stuff and I couldn't think of anything that I really liked and that really called out to me. And then you're exactly right. This mindset shift happened and it was like, I don't even know where to begin. So it's funny how, I guess that's sort of the evolution of the entrepreneurial mindset that happens to everyone. So
yeah. And a quick tidbit, if you're having trouble still getting that traction, I refer to James Altucher's advice of just doing the idea exercise every day. So you keep priming your mind to come up with ideas. And now it's like, for me, it's idea subtraction. Like you know what I mean? Like I keep a list in my phone and on my computer, and anytime I have a business idea or something like that, I jot it down, and literally that thing is just a monster. It's it's borderline a novel at this point, and that's what happens though. You know what I mean? Like you you see so many different problems that could use optimization, could use fixing or whatever it is. And what we're talking about today with just focus, you got to figure out which ones you're going to, devote your attention to.
Exactly. And this is, focus as commanded by Mr. John Lee Dumas, who we had on the podcast earlier. I've said this before, I'll say it again. His acronym for it is follow one course until success. Focus. And this leads me into my next story, which is the story of my own business, with my teaching business around programming. I started this business, or that business, I should say, in June of 2012, and started the blog and then published the ebook and so on and so forth. But I fell victim to this lack of focus mindset because I did all the work. I created the blogs, I wrote the ebook, like I said, I published the membership website, and it was like the traction wasn't there, and I wasn't seeing massive sales. There are peaks and valleys, ups and downs in my own mindset. And it was like, all right, well, clearly, it's been 6 months, it's been a year, and still I haven't come anywhere close to replacing my income as a software engineer. So clearly it's not working. And so I would go off and look for the next venture. And I think that led me to, Carter and I started a business ourselves, maybe even a few businesses, actually. I had a few ideas around it.
On a few different.
Yeah. And, it's the same story there. We get excited about it. We get not the traction, but we create the products. We vet the customers. It seems like it's going to be a great idea or a great, something that'll catch on. And then 6 months down the road, it's like, all right, we can't do this anymore. And we've lost our interest and we move on. Yeah. And,
because it loses the lust, right? That lust, that sexiness, that what if carries you so much in those first early months because you're so excited about the upside that any setback, any smack in the face, you're going to power through. There's so many thoughts going through my mind right now. I don't know where to begin. One of my mentors, I had, the lucky opportunity, Trevor, you and I have talked about him a few times. But guy's a billionaire, and he told me, he said, unless you want to drive a truck through it, like unless you want to lower your head and for 10 years pursue it, pass up on the idea. And he told me that a while ago. And, it's still so hard to take that advice because there's so many fun things to chase. But you look at all the super successful people out there, and really what they have succeeded at is showing up day after day and just working on their craft, just hitting the hammer, just showing up and improving everything, just one small percentage. I don't know. I want to interject right there because it's just, gosh.
Yeah. And this is something that, so getting back to, my story and how it went for me was I got distracted. Carter and I worked together on many projects, and, just like this one you could even consider to be almost a distraction as well,
totally.
veering off from my intended plan. But the reason why I'm doing this is because even if this does not become successful, even if this doesn't pay any bills at all, I just enjoy doing this. This is just fun for me. This is just, I need to get this stuff out of my brain and talk to someone and share it with people so that if people ask me questions or something, I can say, look, just go here and listen to it. I've already talked about this before. It's almost like a time saver for me in the future. So that's why I don't really consider this to be, one of those sort of side projects that actually is a distraction because it's fun. But having said that, I was able to sort of, get through all those projects that were distractions and sort of get rid of them or drop them off or hit the pause button and say, okay, maybe sometime in the future I'll come back. But I've identified them as not productive. And I've always come back to my first initial business. And if you remember how many episodes, I think 2 episodes ago, or maybe 1 episode ago, I don't even know anymore because we record these in the future. I finally hit my stride and hit the right formula. And now that initial business that I built is finally becoming very successful, where I'm finally making more money in that business than I did as a senior software engineer. So that before, I'll say it again, I'm very proud of that. But it took me 3 years to do it. So in year 1, there's no way I would have thought that, I would be anywhere near that I am today, right? And it's like, you want to be and you hope you will be, but it's like that's such a huge gap. And then same thing, year 2, it's like, all right, this is imagine, putting 2 years of your life into something and really not seeing huge benefits from it. And it's just, it's no wonder that so many people quit entrepreneurship, and there's no wonder so many people get distracted and do other things, because it's so hard to stay heads down. But I want to talk a little bit about signs.
I got so much stuff to say. I don't even know. Before the show, I was like, yeah, this will be fun to talk about. And now I'm on fire. Like, okay. I'm so excited. Great quote that pertains to this. Just finished Tony Robbins' new book, Money Mastery. Awesome read. Definitely check it out.
That's like this one, the huge, thick, like 700,000 page book.
Like the Bible thin pages. But hey, it's worth its weight in gold. Cool. Highly recommend. Anyways, one thing he says in there, and it's really, I've been thinking about this and I can't get it out of my head. He says that we overestimate what we can achieve in a year, but drastically underestimate what we can achieve in a decade. How like amazing is that? So we look at things, and I've done this. My first business, I was like, yeah, 1 year we'll be in 5 cities and blah blah blah. Yeah. My moving company, and really you kind of get beat up and defeated after that year passes, and you're like, what's the show? But and this goes into a bigger principle. If you stick with things, if you focus with things, if you do what you were saying, Trevor, with just really, all heads down, focused on your one business, you start to get that compounding exponential type growth. It no longer becomes linear. It no longer becomes, well, we did 8%, 8%, 8%. It becomes, we did 8%, we did 32%, we did, and a truly awesome progress curve starts happening. But yeah, I'm gonna have tons of interjections like that today. So
that's good.
Let's just keep going.
That's the hockey stick effect, and that is something I've heard about, so many times in my, the past 3 years of listening to podcasts and reading books and everything. They talk about this hockey stick effect, and it's so, I feel like I'm at the very beginning of that hockey stick effect. I think, the month of February was maybe the first inflection point, where that, the needle actually is visibly moving. And then I believe that next month it's going to be moving even more, maybe doubling the income and so on and so forth, to the point where I'm going to be able to see, if I were to chart out and graph out my income, it would be this, this line that would go from, the far left of the graph, and it would just be pretty much flatlined, more or less. And then all of a sudden at the very end, it just shoots right up. And it's and that's over the course of 3 years. For some people, that's a 5-year chart. For some people, that's a 10-year chart.
And for some people, it's 6 months. And it happens.
Absolutely.
And I think, you look at the people who it does happen to earlier, what do they have in common? It comes back to what we're talking about. They're focused.
Yes.
They're fully in. They're fully committed. They're not doing these side projects. They're not. No. And you look at, there's a lot of examples of people who are working on multiple businesses that are extremely successful. Elon Musk, how many awesome projects does he have working on? But look what he did before that. Like, he invested everything into getting PayPal off the ground and a company.
Yeah, so we should expound a little bit about who Elon Musk is, because he's one of my, I would say top 5 entrepreneurial, heroes that I would talk about. So tell a little bit more about Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon Musk. We'll put it this way. Literally, the movie Iron Man, that character that Robert Downey Jr., they modeled him after Elon Musk. So that's how much of a baller this guy is.
Yeah.
But he started, I forget his first company.
MapX or something, or Map? Something
like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's essentially Google Maps.
Yeah, and then he was part of the PayPal Mafia, which, if you know anything about the, basically the incest of the tech world, I guess you would say, pretty much every single business you've ever heard of somehow has a connection to the PayPal Mafia, which was a group of people who started PayPal. So he was one of those. Now, Tesla, the auto company,
Hold on. Time out. I don't think it's fair to say that he was one of the mafia. He wrote the code for PayPal.
Did he? I didn't know.
He wrote the code, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So I know his brother was involved in everything else. Yeah. So awesome guy there. took, the money they made from selling PayPal. Now he runs 3 companies. And if you ever are interested in time management, look into how he divvies up his time during the week. But he has Solar City, Tesla, and his company's not SpaceX. Is it called SpaceX? It is SpaceX.
Yep.
Okay. So 3 amazing companies. But everyone kind of points to him as, oh, I can work on multiple things at one time. No, you can't. Like, it took him how many companies to get to the point, and how much leverage does he have? As in, how many people does he have working for him that are top tier talent, top level management that he checks in with and really just guides the ship. So when you're in these trench years, when you're in the trenches, when you're slugging away, when you're everything, don't divvy up your time. If you can focus it, you are going to outperform 99% of the people out there.
Absolutely. And I mean, or if you do get distracted, it's just going to take you longer to achieve that goal. So I think what's important is people are probably saying, okay, well, what happens if I go and spend 3 years of my life heads down, focused, doing everything I possibly can, every hour, every waking hour, every possible thought is directed towards this company. But what happens if all this effort is pointed towards a company that will never succeed? So,
that's a great question.
Because that's what I would be asking. That's how I felt. It's like, I even hit a point where with my business now that's taking off, I swear, and I also heard this too. They talk about how they don't say every, however, a large percentage or whatever it is of entrepreneurs who make the decision. They say, that's it. I don't want to pursue this idea that I have been pursuing, this project, this company that I've built, for the past X number of years. That's it. I'm done. It's not profitable. It's not going to work. I'm walking away. That is literally what I said at the end of 2014. My possible direction was to take the Coder Startup, and the Coder Startup would become, the big powerhouse company, maybe, possibly, 2 or 3 years down the road. I was going to abandon my company that I've been working on for the past 3 years and sort of put it into sort of what I called maintenance mode. Mm-hmm. And it was literally when I made that decision that I made one little tweak that I think I already talked about. Just to, I think I need to just tweak this, and then boom, like that explosion happened. And now it's like all my effort is back and focused on this company. And
what's that internet meme or graph or whatever? You always see the guy who stops that much away from the diamonds, and another guy gets it. And
yeah, exactly. He digs a huge trench. It goes down and down. You see all these zigzags, him digging, and then stops. Yeah, right before the diamond or the gold mine or whatever.
And the truth is, and I hate that because people talk about it all the time, and you can't really predict that. You can't foresee that. It's easy to connect the dots looking back.
Yeah.
But how many other businesses were we right there? Were we one email away?
Yeah. So I think it's important to talk about, finally, now the third time I'm going to say it, and I promise I'll start talking about it now, is the signs. What are the signs, the little signals that you are either on the right course or the wrong course with respect to your company? So one, just from, drawing from my own personal experience with the company now that I said is successful, that I almost gave up on, the entire time I was running this company, everybody absolutely loved my product. Mm-hmm. My product was just a bunch of tutorials, just video tutorials, me talking, not like this in the screen or into an audio file, but a screen capture and me walking them through sort of an IDE and talking about Java coding and whatnot. But one thing was always constant. They always liked my product. Everyone always said, yours is one of the best learning experiences I've ever had. Trevor, you're one of the best teachers I've ever met. All these little, I wouldn't, to me they were little, but really those were huge, not red flags, but I guess green flags saying, oh my God, you have something here. Don't stop. Keep going. Your customers love it. Keep going. But, so my product was great, but the way in which I was selling it was bad. So my marketing skills, which is what we're teaching here, which is why I started this thing, my marketing skills just weren't up to snuff, up to par, and it was causing my business to falter, to maybe to not to grow as quickly as it possibly could. But the big signal was that my product was good. So if you've created something and your customers who have paid for it give you that same feedback and say, hey, this is great, then I think that's an amazing signal that you should keep pushing on. Another thing I'll say before you interject, if you have something to say, I'm sure is I actually put in a survey in my app itself. So in my training course, I ask every student, I have a pop-up that comes up and I survey them on the scale of 1 to 10, kind of like the, what's that called, the survey where it's Net Promoter Score, NPS, I think it's called, Net Promoter Score survey, where I say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend my course to a friend or a family member or something like that? And then, if they're a 9 or a 10, they're a promoter. If they are, a 6 or below, they're a detractor. And if they're somewhere in the middle, then they're neutral. So, if they're a detractor, then you can maybe find out why they, what it is that they don't like about it. And that's certainly something that I had done. I certainly asked them that question, why don't you like it? And they pointed to a few things that I actually was able to tweak. And the people who did love it, all of them were saying, I love your teaching. I love your teaching. I love the way you teach. I love that fact that I learned it quicker than I've ever learned before, et cetera, et cetera. So these were all really good, positive signals that I was on the right course. So I should have listened to those, and I should have realized the problem was not the product. The problem was the marketing. So anyway, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but fire away.
Yeah. I'll talk about it from my perspective. So there's two things I think about with this question. When is the time to walk away from an idea, or where how do you know it's still worth pursuing? The first thing that's extremely important to take into consideration, I heard Peter Schaller, the counselor or therapist for entrepreneurs, or I forget his.
Oh yeah, I've heard about him. I've heard episodes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, great stuff. And he was talking about, there was this guy he knew who was trying to do web design and literally got to a point where, he wasn't getting any traction, and he was literally like, couldn't afford rent, couldn't afford food, was living on, his friends and family's like couch. And they were telling him like, just go get a job. And he took it as, no, they're dream killers. They just don't see it. So if you actually are depending on your startup to feed you, and you are not seeing that traction, or you are at a point where it is so stressful you cannot make, your essential living expenses, it is definitely time to get either a side gig or something to take away from that stress. It's no way is it worth that. So definitely either, get a side job or just walk away. The other thing, assuming that you have your living expenses in order, you're making enough to where, you're living a comfortable life, you're covering your basics. If it gets to a point where you are no longer enjoying it, not that you don't have to go in and smile and be like, oh my gosh, I love this every single day. But if you're getting to a point where you're actually, how can I word this?
You're actively not looking forward to doing it.
Yeah, if you're avoiding it more than you're looking forward to it, then it's time to look at something different. Because again, it's not worth it. I heard something the other day, it's so relevant to this conversation. How often do we literally start something as in, let me see, I took notes on it, so I'll read the exact thing how often do we start something that's, this will get me by for the day? We just do whatever that is, and then it actually turns into a 3-year, 4-year project, or it actually turns into a 40-year career, and that's what you want to avoid. So, I definitely would stray away from those type decisions as well. As far as actually showing or basically indicating that you're on the right track, I'm with you, Trevor. I think, the best thing is just positive feedback from your customers and your clients. Another really good way that you can shorten the learning curve there is to basically bring in expert opinions. So you look at what Sam Walton did to grow his empire. You look at a lot of what you've done, Trevor, with Leveling Up, and it's talking to these people who have an outside perspective and can kind of see things from a different view and really getting their opinion. Are you on the right track? And if you get that nice opinion, but you kind of feel that underlying tone, it might be time to do some serious considerations there. So,
yeah, and it's tough. I mean, it's tough to walk away from something that you have put so much time and effort into. I know. I felt the pain when I physically said out loud, I was having a chat with my dad, who's the CFO of my company. I'm lucky enough to have a father who is not only actively in, and working with me in my company, but also a good background of accounting and whatnot. So that helps me out. But I actually said to him out loud that I was done, that I wanted to flip the switch and put it into what I said, like I said before, the maintenance mode, and sort of, pretty much call it a failure after 3 years. And I mean, you have to reach, and I mean, I enjoyed it. I loved everything I did inside of that business. It was my baby. I built it from nothing, and I was proud of it, but it just wasn't, hitting, it wasn't doing it. And I was seeing a lot of the negative and not seeing any of the positives inside of it. I was focusing on the negatives because I was beaten down so much with respect to the lack of sales. So it was physically, it hurt to say that I was going to give up and to put it into maintenance mode. But there was actually a little bit of relief, because it was like I learned something from that experience. I learned that, with respect to programming, I'll just, explain this particular, one particular thing about this so that you guys understand where I was coming from. With respect to programming, about half of the potential customers you're going to have, about half of the traffic that your blog will receive, half of your readers, listeners, whatever, are going to be coming from countries that can't afford to buy your products. So it's not their fault. It's not their fault that they can't afford to, but you just can't grow a business on a customer base that can only pay you $1 for something that you put a year worth of work into. Okay. And those customers are going to bleed you dry because they're going to have questions. You're going to have to support them. You're going to have to do this and that. And you're going to be spending hours and hours and hours. And the return on that investment is going to be practically nothing. So, that's the negative side of it that I was focusing on and saying, okay, this is just the wrong customer base. But what I didn't think of, again, hindsight 2020, what I didn't realize is that there's tons of businesses already out there that do the exact same thing that I do, that are hyper successful, if that's a terminology, if that's a word. There are businesses that do the exact same thing, people who have built empires on teaching exactly what it is that I'm teaching. That's another very positive sign that if that's what you're doing, that it's possible, that it's a good thing. Like I said, we said it way back when, competition is a good thing and a positive sign. If there's no competition whatsoever, that's a terrible sign. You should really consider not moving forward with that idea, if at all, if it's already, just in the idea phase. But anyway, go ahead, Carter. I know you have lots to say.
I was just going to say that, you don't have competition. Usually that's not a good sign. And so often, and we were like this, when you start off, you want to have that original idea. You want to, think that you're onto something that no one else has thought of. But usually that just means that it is a really, really messy place. There's no one's been able to figure out, and it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of resources. And I'm not saying don't take those swings, but just take them later on in your entrepreneurial career when, you're not...
You can afford to lose.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't. Another sign of failure is with the business Carter and I were working in. There was a lot of overhead in terms of staff and whatnot, and costs per month. Where I think we were spending whatever it was, $1,500 a month just to keep the business running. But our revenues were something like $20 a month. So when you have and I mean, there's a lot of businesses that run in the red. For a while before, getting into the black, and they become very successful companies. So I'm not saying that that's a negative sign. That could just be par for the course. But if you are in a situation where your business, you just can't fund the business, there's just no backing in terms of actual investors or yourself in terms of giving money out of your own personal bank account and investing it in the company, you're setting yourself up for failure, and the faster you can get out of that situation, the better. That's the lesson that we learned with that last company. Potentially great idea. We've heard other companies who have sprouted up that did the exact same thing. Whether or not they are successful, I don't know. I haven't heard of any huge success stories, so maybe not. But that's also a good sign that maybe you should not be pursuing it if you just don't have the funds to invest. And like Carter said, maybe you should try that as your second or third idea. Preferably you want to give yourself the best chance of success that you possibly can, which is why I pursued info products as my first business, because info products, there's no, inventory, there's no shipping cost, no physical goods and all that stuff. There's no, there's nothing. There's no real delivery cost to get them to the customer. There's nothing. All you're paying for is a website, some hosting costs, and then, maybe, some gear to record videos if you're doing videos. But even less to write a book. I mean, to write a book, you need a computer, which you hopefully should already have in front of you if you're listening to this. Then you pretty much already have what you need to get started. And the risk in terms of investment, in monetary investment, is just so low. So hopefully that goes without saying that is your best, chance. But if you really wanted to get into the physical goods, arena, because maybe your family has an existing business and you want to help them out, or maybe a friend has started a business and they have a lot of, they talk to you a lot about their business and taught you and all that stuff, then sure. But just know that those businesses have a higher chance of failure unless you have a lot of money to back it. So anyway.
Yeah.
There you
go. I want
to
talk about something real quick, because I know surprisingly time's already gone by.
Yeah.
Almost
time to wrap up.
Yeah, but we talked about how you can basically decide if your idea is working or whatever. I think it's important for us to talk about the art of saying no, because you'll get to a position, and we were talking about it before the show, where you go from having no ideas to some ideas to ton of ideas to then you have so many ideas and network that people are constantly approaching you for ideas.
Yeah.
Literally every other week, I feel like I'm basically, somebody's telling me, hey, would you be interested in going in on this? I'll give you X amount of equity, blah, blah, blah. And it's not that those ideas aren't great and, they might be super successful. I don't know. But it's really about, just allocating your most important resource of time and your attention and your focus. There are two things that came to mind when I was thinking about this. Warren Buffett has this approach for investing, and I think it's very powerful for the idea decision. He talks about if you had a punch card and you only had 10 punches in terms of lifetime investments. In your entire life, you could only make 10 investments. Are you willing to give up one punch for that investment? And I think that's something that's really, really cool to think about in terms of the ideas that you're pursuing. Like, how serious do you want to evaluate your idea? And if you can give up one of those punches, it's worth pulling the trigger. The other thing, and this is something I incorporated about 8 months ago, just because I was having so much problems with focus and everything. I now, anytime I have an idea, I put it on layaway for 30 days. And what this does is, and you can just set up alert in your phone, or, just keep a document, and all those ideas are off limits until 30 days passes. And then I can reevaluate them and say, hey, this is still an idea. Because what that does for me, at least, is it takes out the emotional excitement about that new idea and what if. And 9 out of 10 times, I'll come back to the idea and I'll be like, it's okay, but no, don't want to pursue it. And maybe I'll have 1 out of 10 that's like, man, that's still kind of consuming my thoughts and all. But I've done that to kind of hedge myself against my own optimism and enthusiasm towards ideas. So it might be helpful.
Yeah. And I think that's another sort of trait when it comes to entrepreneurs. We are overly optimistic most of the time, I find. Yeah. Totally. That's, I think you have to be. Otherwise, if you're a pessimist, I'm sorry, I don't think you're in the right line of business with respect to entrepreneurship, because you're going to flee at the first sign of trouble, which is going to happen very, very often, very frequently and very often. Unless those are two the same thing. Anyway, it's going to happen. So you need to keep this air of optimism about you in order to succeed in this business, really. So anyway, focus. That is the theme of this entire episode, and it should be the theme of your entrepreneurial career. I like Carter's last little tidbit there. I think a good way to do that is to implement the layaway for the ideas. I think you can use if this then that. So the website IFFF or FTTT?
IFTTT.
if this then that, ifttt.com, I think. And you can actually make it so that it'll text you in X number of days or something like that. So set that up. That's useful, and that's useful for a whole bunch of other things too, for setting up different types of reminders and recurring reminders or something like that. It's a good resource to use. So cool. Let's I think focus, like I said, follow one course until success. When you follow that course, make sure that you've done some pre-vetting of that course to make sure that you know that it's a good one. You can implement some ideas that we'd had about pre-selling, where you obviously go in and try to actually sell people on the idea and get money in hand before you build it. That's a great way to prove out your idea. Once you've built it, look for those positive signs from your customers. Look for negative signs. If no one is saying anything to you, no one's giving you any feedback, no one is saying anything at all to you, that's a negative sign in my opinion. Look out for that. But then if you've got the signals, if you've got the pre-orders, if you've got some money coming in, if people like your stuff, if you enjoy what you're doing, and if you could see yourself doing this for many years, then just bloody keep your head down and don't get distracted. You got two people here who are telling you from their personal experience that was a wrong and a bad move to make. So I don't want to hear you do the same thing. Stay focused, keep your head down, be one of the success stories that hits it less than a year in, and let us know about it at thecodersstartup.com / what is this, 21 now for episode number 21. That's where you can read the show notes, leave us a comment. And I guess until next time, unless you have anything to say, Carter, we will say farewell.
Sounds good. Until next time.
Cool, guys. Peace out.